Welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All the cards you see in our videos are $1 or less, with exception of the commander cards. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified when a new video comes out. Hi, welcome to Budget MTG Decks. I'm David.
And I'm Lisa. And today we're going to look at a fun and effective commander deck that you can build without breaking the bank.
That's right.
We have a very awesome commander for you today. It's a TOOLBOX commander in the form of Prime Speaker Vannifar. And for 2, a green and a blue, we get a 2/4 legendary Elf Ooze Wizard. And we can tap her, sacrifice another creature, and then we can go through our library to look for a creature card with the same converted mana cost as the sacrificed creature +1, and we can play it without paying for it. But remember, we can only do this sorcery speed.
Yeah, exactly. So there's 3 important things to remember with this commander. She cannot sacrifice herself. She cannot do this instant speed in response to, for example, somebody targeting one of our creatures. And lastly, we can target our own creatures with Shroud because it's not a target ability. So the strategy of this deck is going to be basically we're going to be playing creatures with either enter the battlefield or die triggers. And then we're going to sacrifice them to our commander to cheat in bigger and better creatures. So in a way, this deck is like a toolbox deck, like a birthing pod, for example. And we always tutor up whichever creature is the most beneficial for us that turn. The creatures we're going to search on are going to be highly dependent on whatever we want to do that turn. So the deck has a variety of creatures that do different things at different converted mana costs. So 3 things the strategy of this deck wants to do, and that is get value from our creatures, whether they stay or not, cheat creatures into play by not paying the mana cost to play them, and lastly, always have an answer by tutoring up whatever we need at that point in time.
So this deck is not expensive, it's only $40. The commander is below $15, and the rest of the deck is about $25. So let's have a look at the deck list, grouped by category. First, we're going to be looking at the synergy cards. These cards all work really well together with the strategy of the deck. We have untap cards, which allow us to untap Vannifar. We have clone cards, which allow us to copy creatures. We have cheat cards, which allow us to cheat in cards for free. And we have win condition cards, which allow us to win the game later in the game.
Yeah, and we're going to start first with the untap cards, and we have Instill Energy, Cura's Follower, Vizier of Tumbling Sands, and Retreat to Coral Helm. These cards all allow us to untap our commander more than once per turn. What's notable is that Instill Energy also gives our commander haste. Cura's Follower and Vizier of Tumbling Sands can also be used as mana ramp or mana fixing by allowing us to also untap land should we want to do that. And Retreat to Coral Helm is pretty cool because it allows us to chain together a combo if we every turn or every time tutor up a creature that drops a land when it enters the battlefield, because then every time we untap our commander, then we can sack that one and get the next one in the line. So that is pretty cool.
Then we have Deceiver Exarch, Breaching Hippocamp, Chakram Receiver, and Great Oak Guardian. And these can all be chained into each other to hit a creature of converted mana cost 7 in 1 turn.
Yeah, so how that works is, let's say we've got a creature of converted mana cost 2 and our commander. Then we're going to sack the converted mana cost 2 creature. We're going to look for Deceiver Exarch, comes in, untaps our commander. Then we tap our commander, sack Deceiver Exarch, look for Breaching Hippocamp, untap our commander, tap our commander, sack Breaching Hippocamp, look for Chakram Receiver, stop, because Chakram Receiver does not, when it enters the battlefield, untap our commander. Then we play our first spell of the turn. We untap our commander, sack Chakram Retriever, go get Great Oak Guardian, untap our commander, and then we can go sack the Great Oak Guardian to go look for that converted mana cost 7 creature, which is pretty incredible in 1 turn. What's also notable to remember is that, well, Chakram Retriever, of course, we can use that multiple times, whereas Deceiver Exarch, Breaching Hippocamp, they come in, they just do that. And what's also cool is that Great Oak Guardian can also kind of be used as a win condition because it untaps our entire team and also palms our entire team, so we can use it in the end also if we want to just deal a lot of damage.
Yeah, so it's actually just 1 sick combo.
Pretty sweet. Then we have some clone cards. The reason why we have these ones in here is because we have some awesome enter the battlefield effects, and we have some awesome creatures, and sometimes we just want that effect more than one. So it's nice to have a clone, so it's just the jack of all trades there. We have Vizier of Many Faces, Altered Ego, and Body Double. What's notable is that Vizier of Many Faces can actually be used twice because it also has Embalm. And remember that the Embalm creature, so we play it the second time, we can also sack that one, and then we can go look for a converted mana cost 1 creature, which the deck does have, so that's pretty cool. Altered Ego is sweet because we can either make it really big and it's also uncounterable, which is very handy. And Body Double allows us to actually make a copy of not something on the battlefield, but something that's in a graveyard, and that's very handy because we're obviously looking for good stuff, and then we're sacking it, so Body Double is able to get that good stuff again.
Then we have Jisan, the Wanderer Bard, Hibernation's End, and Aid from the Cow. And these can all get us creatures or permanents for free.
Yeah, so it's important when we're cheating cards into play. Our commander cheats stuff into play. It's nice to have a couple of extra cards that also cheat stuff into play. Jisan does it every turn for just 3 mana, but keeps on getting bigger and bigger stuff. Hibernation's End is also getting bigger and bigger stuff, but we're paying more and more mana every turn. And Aid from the Cow, we don't pay any mana, but we don't get to tutor up anything either. It just looks at the top card. If it's a permanent, we pop it on the battlefield without paying for it. And the Revolt mechanic means we do need to have something of ours have left the battlefield, but we're sacking something every turn with our commander, so that's definitely happening. Then we have another couple of cheat cards, and that is Gamekeeper, Species Gorger, and Diluvian Primordial. Cool about Gamekeeper is actually when we sack that one, not only are we going to look for something that's converted mana cost 5, but we're also going to be revealing the top of our library until we get another creature and popping that one on the battlefield, so that can be really absolutely sick. Important to remember, though, is that we do need to exile Gamekeeper, so we can't recur it multiple times. Species Gorger is in there not only because it's a 6/6 that we can beat our opponents with, but also we can every turn at the beginning of our upkeep return something cool with the cool Enter the Battlefield ability and replay it every single turn. For example, let's say we have this and an Acidic Slime. Every turn return Acidic Slime. Yeah, that's going to get really annoying for our opponents. And the last of the cheat cards is Diluvian Primordial, which allows us, when it comes into play, instants or sorcery from our opponent's graveyards. And that's really nice also because we're not very heavy on instants and sorceries. It's just nice to have access to at least our opponent's instants and sorceries.
Yeah, last but not least, we have some win condition cards. We have Kessig Cagebreakers, Rampaging Bailouts, Simic Sky Swallower, and Inkwell Leviathan. And when it's time to start swinging, these cards will bring the pain.
Yeah, in the end, I mean, it's fun to tutor up stuff, but in the end, we're tutoring up stuff to get to something where we can smack our opponents and kill them, dealing a lot of damage. Kessig Cagebreakers takes advantage of our graveyard that's going to be full of creatures. Rampaging Bailouts takes advantage of the fact that we got a lot of land fetchers, so we're fetching a lot of lands, so takes advantage of that. And Simic Sky Swallower and Inkwell Leviathan takes advantage of the fact that they are huge, trampling, shrouded creatures that are really difficult to deal with. That is it for the synergy cards. Let's have a look at the protection cards.
We divided the protection cards into 3 categories. Those that protect us against targeted removal, those that protect us against board wipes, and those that protect us from taking too much damage.
Yeah, the first of our cards that protect us against targeted removal is Simic Charm, Dense Foliage, Elgaud, Shieldmaid, and Temur Sabertooth. Now, what's important to note is that Simic Charm does have multiple modes, but we use usually the second mode to give all our creatures hexproof. Dense Foliage just says, okay, creatures just can't be the target of spells, period. So that's also our opponent's stuff, which is really nasty if they want to use pump or enchantments on their own things, but mostly just keeps our board safe from their targeting our stuff with spells. But remember that if they play a creature with an Enter the Battlefield ability which targets our stuff, that's still fair game. Elgaud Shieldmaid is cool because we can sacrifice a converted mana cost 3 creature and then tutor up this one, and then make sure that both our commander and this card have hexproof. And lastly, Temur Sabertooth is very handy because as long as we got 2 mana open, whenever somebody tries to target, for example, our commander with something, we can just bounce it back to our hand, and then Temur Sabertooth has Indestructible as well. Which is also important to remember is that if we have a creature with Enter the Battlefield abilities, and we got nothing to do with our mana, we can just bounce it every single turn with Temur Sabertooth as well to recast it.
Then we have one card that protects us against board wipes, which is Wrap in Vigor, and this instance will protect us against most board wipes with the exception of wipes that bounce.
Exactly. And then we have the cards, the single card that protects us against taking too much damage, and that is Verdant Sun's Avatar. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we're going to gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Now, it's not that our creatures have a crazy amount of toughness, but it is nice that we're constantly sacking creatures, having new creatures come in, and every time gaining that incremental life and keeping us in the game, especially in the long term. All right, those are the protection cards. Let's have a look at the control cards.
We divided the control cards into 4 categories. We got counter spells, which can also be used to protect our commander, creature removal, non-creature removal, and board wipes.
Yeah, we'll start with the counter spells. We've got Counterspell, Familiar's Ruse, Mystic Snake, and Frilled Mystic. Now, Counterspell, of course, is super cheap. Familiar's Ruse just as cheap to play. The added bonus of Familiar Ruse, of course, that we can return a creature back to our hand. For us, that's a benefit because we've got a lot of creatures with Enter the Battlefield ability, so we can just play it again, get that effect again. A Mystic Snake and Frilled Mystic are cool because once we've countered something, we have a converted mana cost 4 body on the battlefield, which is ripe for the sacking with our commander to go look for something of converted mana cost 5.
For the creature removal, we got Incubation and Incongruity and Curse of the Swine. Now, these two spells are unfortunately not creatures, but we can use them to exile our opponent's creatures.
Yeah, of course, there's nothing better than exiling our opponent's creatures. We do give them a little token in return, but that's inconsequential. And there's, of course, ways that we can recur them from our graveyard. So it's all pretty nice. Also, Curse of the Swine, if we pump enough mana into it, it basically functions as a board wipe as well. Then we have Phyrexian Ingester, Meteor Golem, and Tidespout Tyrant. Now, what's great about these cards is that Phyrexian Ingester, when it enters the battlefield, it's going to also exile a creature. We already said how great exiling a creature is. Meteor Golem can basically hit any non-land permanent, so it's also hitting all the other stuff. And Tidespout Tyrant doesn't hit something when it enters the battlefield, but whenever we cast a spell, we're going to be bouncing a permanent back to our opponent's hands. So when it comes in, it's not going to be doing anything, but every time we cast a spell, we're going to be bouncing something. Now remember that when we cheat something into play with Vannifar's ability, we're putting a creature from our library onto the battlefield, and that will not cause a cast trigger. So it's only when we play stuff from our hand, but still later on in the game, we are going to be playing stuff from our hands anyway, so we're going to be bouncing a lot of stuff.
For the non-creature removal, we have Manglehorn, Acidic Slime, and Terastodon. Now, these are all excellent artifact removal cards for converted mana cost 3, 5, and 8.
Yeah, what's great about Manglehorn is that as long as it's on the battlefield, if we don't sack it to our commander, then artifacts our opponents control are going to enter the battlefield tapped, which is pretty sweet. Acidic Slime can also hit enchantments and lands. And Terastodon can just hit any old non-creature permanent, including lands. So bouncing these two and then replaying them again and targeting our opponent's lands constantly is something that you should definitely not do, because that is really not nice. You shouldn't do that. Then we have Trigon Predator and Loaming Shaman. Trigon Predator, we can tutor that one up when we want something that is going to be able to destroy an artifact enchantment every single turn. We're just going to be attacking, dealing damage, bam, destroying artifacts and enchantments. And Loaming Shaman allows us to either get our own graveyard back into our library or to really hurt our opponent who is playing a graveyard strategy by getting their entire graveyard back into their library.
For the board wipes, we have Displacement Wave, Profaner of the Dead, and Devastation Tides. Now, in blue and green, we don't have access to destroy creature board wipes, so we have to make do with these board wipes that bounce.
Yeah, what's really cool about Displacement Wave is that we can pump enough mana into it to make sure that we only hit stuff of converted mana cost 3 or less. So if we pay 5 mana, we're going to be hitting something 3 or less, which means that we won't hit our commander, but we do hit all the mana rocks that our opponents have, for example, and of course all the tokens if we just pay for 2 mana. Profaner of the Dead is cool because it's a creature, so we can tutor for it, which is very nice. And of course, you can exploit itself, so you don't need another creature to exploit. Then you're only going to hit stuff that's converted that has toughness 2 or less. But of course, we can also exploit something that's bigger and just bounce everything, all the huge stuff. And what's cool, of course, of Profaner of the Dead is it does not hit our own stuff. It only hits our opponent's things. Devastation Tide hits everything. It hits all the non-land permanents. But, sometimes you gotta bounce everything, Yeah. Stuff gets a little bit too crazy. That is it for the control cards. Let's have a look at the card advantage cards.
We divided the card advantage cards into 2 categories. Those that draw us cards and those that recur as cards from the graveyard. Yeah.
First, we're going to look at the cards that draw us cards. That's Fecundity, Techova, Benthic Druid, Soul of the Harvest, and Arcanus the Omnipotent. What's cool about Fecundity is that it draws us a card every time we sack a creature. It dies, we draw a card, but remember, this also works for our opponent. Techova, Benthic Druid draws us a card and gains us a life every time a land comes into play, which is cool because we have lots of ways of fetching lands in this deck. Soul of the Harvest draws us a card every time a non-token creature comes into play under our control, and of course every time we sack a creature we tutor up a creature, we put it onto the battlefield, bam, it triggers, we draw a card. And Arcanus the Omnipotent draws us 3 cards every time we tap it, and of course we've got lots of ways of untapping stuff in this deck, so then bam, it's not unusual to be able to draw 6 cards off of this Arcanus the Omnipotent, which is super sweet.
For the recursion cards, we got Deadwood Treefolk, Green Warden of Marasa, and Moldgrove Monstrosity. And these 3 cards all allow us to reuse cards from the graveyard.
Now what's interesting is that they all actually can give us 2 cards from the graveyard. Deadwood Treefolk when it comes in and when it leaves. Green Warden can also do it, but this one can actually hit any card at all, which is pretty nice because it also hits our instants and sorceries and enchantments, for example. But remember that if we want to do it a second time by triggering it when it dies, we will have to exile it. So actually what we want to do is only have it when it comes in, get the thing, then when it dies, just let it die regular, and then find another way to recur it so we can use it again, because we don't really want to exile stuff, our creatures, especially not this one. And Moldgrove Monstrosity, this one doesn't trigger when it comes in, so we actually have to sack it first, but then we do get 2 things straight onto the battlefield, so they don't go first to our hand, which is pretty nice. And then we have the last of the card advantage cards in the recursion, that is Mnemonic Wall and Ghostly Flicker. Why do we put these cards together? Is because with Mnemonic Wall, when it enters the battlefield, we can recur an instant or sorcery card, and Ghostly Flicker allows us to flicker 2 things, which means we bounce them, just exile them, bring them back into the battlefield. Sure, we can use that to protect our commander, for example, and trigger enter the battlefield abilities. But why it's cool to have these 2 together is because we can target Mnemonic Wall, and we can target another creature, like for example Acidic Slime, just anything with an enter the battlefield ability, and then we're going to bounce both of those, and then a Ghostly Flicker goes in the graveyard, and then when both creatures come in, the first one gets its enter the battlefield trigger, Mnemonic Wall gets its enter the battlefield trigger, so we're going to return that back to our hand. So as long as we've got 3 mana, we can keep on doing that, which is absolutely brutal. That is it for the card advantage cards. Let's have a look at the ramp cards.
We divided the ramp cards into mana dorks, which we can tap for mana, and land fetchers, which we can use to search our libraries for a land and put onto the battlefield, usually tapped.
Yeah, the mana dorks that we have in this deck are Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic. Very simple, they come in early and ramp us into our commander.
And for the land fetchers, we have Primal Druid and Viridian Emissary. These 2 fetches a land when they die, so they're also great to sacrifice with Vannifar.
Yeah. Then we have Coiling Oracle, Wood Elves, Farhaven Elf, and Ondu Giant. All of these, when they come in, they're going to be fetching us a land, putting it onto the battlefield, which, Coiling Oracle sometimes will draw us a card, but in principle, it's of course really nice to go from, for example, a Viridian Emissary into a Wood Elves into Ondu Giant when you have Retreat to Coral Helm, for example. That's a nice little combo right there. That is it for the ramp cards. Let's have a look at the lands.
We divided our lands into 11 islands, 13 forests, and 14 non-basic lands. And for the non-basic lands, we start out with Simic Guildgate, Woodland Stream, Thornwood Falls, Lumbering Falls, and Simic Growth Chamber. And these can all be tapped for a blue or a green mana.
Yeah, then we have Vivid Creek, Vivid Grove, Blighted Woodland, Evolving Wilds, and Terramorphic Expanse. And the first 2 cards can give us a different color 2 times. And Blighted Woodland, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse can all be sacked to search for basic lands.
And then we have Tranquil Thicket, Lonely Sandbar, Temple of the False God, and Rogue's Passage.
Yeah, it's handy that the first 2 cards can give us, can actually be cycled away, so we're not mana flooded. Temple of the False God, we got a lot of land fetchers, so there's a good chance we're going to be able to get extra mana out of this thing. And Rogue's Passage, yeah, we got a lot of fat beaters, so it's nice to be able to make stuff unblockable sometimes. That is it for the lands. Let's have a look at the starting hand.
Here you see an example of 2 ideal starting hands. As you can see, they both have a mana dork, land fetcher, something that allows us to untap our commander more than once per turn, and a repetitive draw engine.
Okay, now we're going to have a look at potential non-budget upgrades you can use to upgrade this deck, along with recommendations of which cards you can best take out to make room for the upgrade. That's it. Thanks for joining us. I'm David.
And I'm Lisa, and this was Budget MTG Decks.
Find all the cards discussed in this video in the description below. Also, show you're a fan of the channel by rocking this awesome Budget MTG Decks merchandise. This show was made possible by the support of our loyal patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/budgetmtgdecks and donate as little as $1 per month.